So I have taught this now multiple times, and I am going to do my very, very best to pretend like you all have never taken this, and I am going to slow the F down and really try to make sure that you get a clear picture of this. We, as an industry, in our offices, in our environment, with our coaches, with our mentors, and our gurus, we call things novation. That word really should only be kept like an internal dialogue. That is not a word we use out in the marketplace, but to understand what novation is, it just simply means to replace a contract with another. So all of us understand that we have a wholesale contract. We'll call that contract from here on out. I will refer to it as your A to B contract. That is the contract that you went under with the seller. And your plan when you have to novate or that you are using it as a pitch strategy, a concierge service, which is how we're going to talk about it today, is your intention is to replace that contract with another contract that is direct from your seller to your end buyer. Your contract has to be voided, and we have paperwork for that. And then you collect what's called a marketing and maintenance fee, or there are some other people calling it some things that make me cringe, but to each their own. It is not an assignment fee. So it will never be an assignment fee. And that's the big one. You are not making an assignment fee because you did not assign your interest or your position in that A to B contract. You replaced it and made that contract go bye, 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 like NSYNC says, or Backstreet Boys, or whoever the fuck said that. Okay, so my gift to you is please stop saying novations. Novations isn't a transaction, if you will. It's an exit strategy. It's a contract replacement tool for you to exit the contractual position that you've put yourself in with that seller. Okay, so don't ever pick up the phone and talk to anybody and be like, do you do novations? And that's going to come up again, but just stop, please. You're only confusing everybody and their mother by saying that. So let's start at comping. Comping, underwriting, whichever one you want to call it in this instance. This is when you are talking to your seller. Now, there are two, let me back up before we get into this. There are two kind of ways that you're going to back yourself into a novation. The first one is you locked up a contract with the seller and you were going to go market it to your cash buyers. You had it locked up. You thought you were going to have a buyer for it. You go shop it to your buyers to assign your contract and you get nothing. And you're like, shit, it's day 4 and I don't have an exit strategy. What the hell am I going to do? And now, according to Tony Mont, you're going to put it on the MLS. You're going to work with an agent or you're going to use the 4-letter bad word flat fee MLS and you're going to go market your property to try to open or expand your eyes to an end buyer. And in that process, the buyer comes with an offer and likely it's an FHA offer because it's a retail buyer and you cannot assign or double close that because of the FHA flip rule and you have to novate your contract. In which case, in that simple scenario, you would execute a novation indemnification and you would take the offer and move on through the rest of the process. The process that I am teaching you today is not that because that's so simple, right? You presented or you pitched a cash offer and your seller took it. But what happens when you pitch a seller your cash offer that you've underwrote the property at and they tell you to go pound sand and you're like, wait, I don't want to waste my lead. I need another exit strategy. Now you're coming into a place where you can be like, wait, Mr. Seller, and without getting into the pitch, which I'll start, we have this other program. Let me see if I can qualify you for it. That is where you're qualifying somebody and you know you're going to novate this contract, but we don't say novate. We want to market it to an end buyer and match it to an end buyer. And so really what we're doing in order to save face with the seller is we're offering some sort of concierge service. We're offering a white glove alternative that's not you as a wholesaler trying to assign a contract, but you got to find a creative way to really put your arms around that seller, love on that seller, and make them feel warm and fuzzy for wanting to stay with you instead of just going and listing the property with a realtor. Okay? So The way I talk about it today is in that niche, not necessarily the conversion of, oh shit, I put myself in a corner and now I have to novate because of the offer type, or I'm not able to negotiate an assignment or a double close with something that I've done on market. Okay, so I want to frame that correctly and set that scene that this then should make sense. In either way, you really, when you get good at this, when you are running your numbers, when you are underwriting your deal in order to provide your cash offer, you can always consider and underwrite your deals this way. And now I will say, admittedly, I'm like the worst freaking underwriter in the world. And I really shouldn't crap on myself for that because, like, I think in my head, I'm like a really bad underwriter. But I ran Dispo for 2 years. And in that company, we locked up and I processed, whether they closed or not, about 200 novation contracts. So I understand how to comp from a what I think the listing price is going to be. And that's really where this has become successful because you're not comping or underwriting a property to figure out ARV. Anybody that's still using ARV in their day-to-day formula, like you need a new mentor. Like throw ARV out of the window. That process is dead. It doesn't exist anymore. Your buyers are your comps, right? And the only thing, even if you're doing a strict wholesale cash assignment business model, the only number that matters is the number that your buyer is going to pay for it. So you might as well get used to underwriting this way for all transactions and stop paying attention to ARV because that model died in 2022. Let's just be really honest. 2026, we're in a whole new ballgame. Things don't work the same way that they did, and you need a better way to underwrite. So throw ARV out the door. When you are looking at properties to put on a market when you're going to do a concierge type novation service is CCV, current condition value. Because you're not selling this to somebody that's going to come in and likely rehab, fix and flip, or buy and hold, which is still going to entail some type of fix and flip. You're looking for a retail buyer like you, me, your brother, your friend, or your aunt who probably is squeaking in given our current financial landscape, and they need to get into a property that is livable and is in the current condition. That's the price that they're going to pay is based on what that property looks like now, not what it will be after flip, because they ain't flipping it. They don't got the money to flip it. They're going in FHA. They can barely afford 3.5%, let alone 50 grand to flip a property, right? Like that doesn't exist here. It's apples to oranges. So you got to pay attention and get good at underwriting based on CCV if you're going to go this way. And then as far as markets and areas where this is going to be good, you want properties that have 30% or more pending activity. If you are sub 30, that property is never gonna sell. The average days on market is 100 plus days. I want you to look at your contract that you've locked up with the seller. How many days did you give yourself to close? 40, 30, 60? If you got to go on market for 100 days for your property to even get an offer on it, you just done blew yourself out of the water. You might as well hand over your contract to somebody else. So looking at a property that's sitting at less than that, your days on market is probably likely way more than that. And now you've backed yourself into a second corner that now you have to overcome another objection that you didn't even want to overcome in the first place. So pay attention to the pending activity. And it's really easy to look at. You just go to the address in Zillow, look at how many properties are for sale versus how many properties have sold, and that will tell you your percentage on what the pending average is in the marketplace. Okay, 30% more, golden goose. Now let's get you into the home. You need to be the cheapest home on the market in that neighborhood by at least 5%. Okay, I'm really bad at math. So when we get going through this, please don't ask me to tell you what numbers are because I suck at it. That's why we have tools like calculators and phones that tell us what to do or AI, right? But 5%. I used to, and we'll talk about it again, but I used to go in, whatever my agent told me, I would undercut my agent by $10,000 to $20,000, depending on what we were talking about and how much room I had in the deal. So significantly, I'm going to say this probably 3 more times. You want to be the cheapest thing on the market. And we'll go over that in the dispo strategy, why that's so important. Okay. Now you also need to factor costs. In the true model, the seller or you, out of your marketing maintenance fee, you are going to cover concessions, commissions, and closing costs. Okay. Really important. I've learned of late that a lot of people think that concessions are repairs. No, 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 honey. Repairs are completely separate. They have nothing to do with concession. Concession is the amount that you entice the buyer to help with their loan costs and their prepaids in their transaction for buying your home. Now, if your offer is FHA, I promise you they need loan concessions and you're going to be giving them max 3%. When you're running your underwriting numbers to make sure you have enough spread in your deal, you need to account for 3% concession, or what we have written here is actually 4% plus a 1% closing cost. It works out to the same 3 and 3, and you better be prepared. If you're going to do these, you're doing these right, you're offering a full 6% commission. I don't really give a crap about the NAR thing that sellers don't have to pay buyers commissions. Yes, they freaking do if you want them to buy your deal. Yes, they do, honey. Okay. Just because it doesn't have to be paid for by the seller doesn't mean that it's not still rightfully paid for by the seller. That's just what paperwork says. But every buyer's agent and everybody I know is offering 6% commission. Now, that's not to say that you are not in one market and you're not super spread out and you start doing deals and you've got a preferred agent because all of your deals are in one market, and now you've done a couple and you've paid your seller, your listing agent 3% a couple of times, and now you don't say like, "Hey buddy, like Anthony, I'm going to use you for all of my deals and I'm locking up 3 to 5 of these a month. That's free money to you. What can we work out?" But I will tell you on the flip side, when we start talking about how to vet agents, and if you are vetting your agent and you ask them what their commission is, this is a tip I learned from an agent. So write this down for those of you that are doing dispo. If you get on the phone to vet your agent and you ask the agent, what do you charge for commission? And they do this, like it's 3%, but I could work with you on that. That is not the buyer. That is not the agent you want to work with, because they couldn't negotiate their own pocketbook. What are they going to do for your deal? And I never learned that. I never thought about that when I was dispoing properties. And I was like, damn, that is a nugget that I wish I would have had when I was doing this, because I was looking for the one that was going to negotiate and didn't realize that they don't know how to negotiate because they can't even negotiate for their own livelihood. What are they going to do for the price when we need an offer, right? So write that one down. So total and factor, the way you want to look at this is basically you're running a total of 11% of the list price less what you want to make in the deal, right? Like my number to start is always 30, but you could have a different number. And then that reversed is going to give you what your max allowable offer is to your seller, your MAO. So the example that we have here, 300,000, we think the list price is going to be less, 5% is about 285. Commission's going to be 17.1. Concessions and credits 1,104. Closing costs 28. You want to make a spread of between 40 and 25. So your MAO to your seller is 213,650 to 228 to 229, right? We'll use full numbers. So how you work that in is that your cash price. So let's say you came on the phone with the seller, you gave them a cash price and you were at like 180 to get the deal done in order to assign it. And now you turn it when we go through the pitch here in a second. And now you know that your offer is way higher. So you're able to come up considerably. I'm coming up, what is that, $30,000 at the max for me to make for me to make 40 grand, and I could potentially come up another 20-ish, 25-ish to still make $25,000 on a deal, average assignment fee 22,000. So you're still ahead of the game in an assignment. And now you've come up almost $50,000 because of this strategy. So this is where it allows you to save the deals if you can do it right. It also can work advantageously for you. You can get bigger spreads if you can get it at the lower, and then maybe you get a smash in offer and they don't need concessions. Now you put that in your pocket, that jumps your assignment fee. You don't need repairs, that jumps up your assignment fee. Or you do my favorite thing, which is a strategy I'm going to teach you in a little bit, is you get into bidding wars and escalations, and now you yank up the price well past your listing price, which is always the goal. And now you've put more money in. This is how people, aside from people in really rich markets, are banging out 60, 70, and $80,000 assignment fees. And that was my strategy when I was doing this. I'm going to pause there before I move on to the next one. Tony, you've got a question. Hit me, sir.
Yeah, just a quick question. This is all great, by the way. But yeah, quick question. Do you always go in with a cash offer first and then go to innovations, or would you look at a property, realize that, you know, a fix and flip or a buy and hold cash offer is just not going to cut it, and just automatically assume this is going to be an innovations deal, or like, what do you do?
So you can have that mindset, but I would always pitch a cash offer.
Okay.
I worked with some of these guys are the acquisition closers that I worked with when I was dispoing. I believe, and they can confirm and give a thumbs up, but I'm pretty sure they were taught always, even if we knew we were going in novation, because literally we didn't wholesale. It was really our only strategy was to novate, but they still pitched a cash offer and then came in with the pitch, which I'm going to give you the pitch that we used, slightly tweaked my language, my verbiage, but I think they always anchored cash and then they went in because that's how you come up on the 50, 60, 70, 80, right? Like you go in with the cash offer and the seller's like, "Cool, I'll take it," right? And you're like, "Okay, well now I just have to explain the novation because that's the only strategy we're using. We're going on the market with this bitch." But now we just, we put an extra $30,000 on our assignment fee because we didn't do an assignment, we did a novation.